Only time will tell if change is necessary. If the things you've done up until this point in time have not gotten you to where you want to go, then you need to make a change. Because time will tell you if they're doing the right thing. If you think that doing this will get you to where you want to go, and over time that doesn't happen, then you know that what you're doing is not sufficient. A change is necessary. So how are you going to change what you're doing in order to achieve what you want to achieve this next year, this next month, tomorrow? How can you start today by changing your actions? That way you can actually start making progress towards what you want to do. One of the ways that you can figure that out is by talking through what you've been doing. Because if you're not where you want to go, then what you've been doing is gotta change. And so what have I been doing that's probably not the best? It definitely needs to change. Well, for one, I plan way too many things. I'm just planning, Seneca, I think it's Seneca, says that the one thing all fools have in common is that they're always preparing to start, right? So they're always getting ready. They're always planning. And that one hit hard when I read that quote, because I don't want to be called a fool, but apparently that's what I am. If I'm the type of person just to plan out a series, to pull everything together, to do all this stuff, seemingly being productive, but never to act on it, what am I doing with my life? At the end of my life, do I want to have a stack of papers of plans that could have worked? Or do I want to have lives changed? Do I want to have results? Money in the bank? I'd rather have that second option. So yeah, I think that's got to change. I got to stop planning so much. I got to instead figure out what is the one action I can take right now that would move me forward on this path. What's the first step I can take today, because that's way more important. The plan comes after you make 10 or 20 moves, because you never know yet. You could get 5 or 10 moves into it and realize this is not what I want to be doing. I couldn't see myself doing this for 10 years. Well, another thing that I do is I talk a lot about ideas, and I come up with ideas. So why are these two things bad? Because ideas are cheap, and talking about ideas is the equivalent of passing around gift cards that are empty. There's no value in gift cards that are empty except the fact that they could be worth something if you loaded them up with value. So, and I just came up with that on the spot, so I don't know if that's a good analogy or not, but you get the point, right? This next year, I need to stop talking about ideas as much. I need to figure out what is the minimum required action that I could do. What is the minimum action that I could take on this idea? That's what I need to go out and do. In the same way that I should stop planning, I should just go out and do the first step. Well, over here, I should stop coming up with ideas, and instead I should come up with the minimum viable action that I could take on this idea, right? And so there's a commonality right here. The things I've been doing wrong is that I've been talking about doing and not actually doing. If I want to change the result, I have to take more action. I can come up with 1,000 ideas for videos for social media. I could plan them out. But if I never record the videos, then, I never have a chance of having a video that goes viral on social media. Well, what's another thing that I do wrong is that I'm not finishing projects. And that's something I got to change. If I take on a project, I have to see it through to the end. There is no excuse to quit or to stop or to not follow through on your goals, on the commitments that you make. If it's important enough for you to commit your time to it, then it's necessary that you finish so that you have a result to show others and to show yourself, to build that mountain of confidence within you. Because how many times of you committing to something and failing at that will it take for you to stop doing that for the rest of your life when you have that wonderful skill set, this God-given ability that you're not taking advantage of to the fullest extent, and you're mistaking that for long-term what's the word for this, inadequacy, when in reality it's just short-term failure to follow through. Let me rephrase that. you think that you don't have what it takes long term to achieve this massive vision, when in reality you do have what it takes, and you're just mistaking right now your shortcomings right now for your long term ability to achieve, right? And so don't mistake the two. Realize that you're most likely doing something wrong right now, that if you changed that one thing, it would move you forward on this path. And there will be several things like this along the way. And so just because you're not succeeding right now doesn't mean that long term you won't succeed. So those three things are all on the path of making something happen. It's talking about the ideas, generating ideas, planning the ideas, going out and not following through fully on the ideas, just doing a little bit, right? Those are just a couple things of, that I need to change in this next year. I need to stop planning so much and instead just come up with what's the first thing I can do. Then instead of coming up with ideas all the time, I should just take the one idea that's the best out of all of them and act on that one thing. And so a good example of this, I've been coming up with questions for such a long time. And so now I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to go make a card deck of questions. That's the minimum viable product that I could go make. And I got to just see if people would find it interesting, And so I'm taking a step there. I talked about, always talking about like I could read books or do a podcast or anything like that. It's like, okay, well, how are you going to do this on a consistent basis? If you read books, is it more important that you read a certain amount of books in a year, or that you just read a certain amount of pages every single day? Probably the second one, right? So that way you're committing to something that you can do on a consistent basis. Well, then what's the most important part is that you can actually take something away from these things and apply it to your life. Because the information that exists in the books on the shelf is useless to you unless you read it. But it's also useless to you if you read it and aren't able to apply it, right? Books are supposed to change your perspective on the world. They're supposed to change your actions, who you are. And so if you're not actually applying the knowledge, then you're basically wasting the time and the money of buying the book. It's much better as a decoration unless you apply the knowledge in your life, right? And so instead of trying to read a book every single day, I'll read a book every week, but make it apply to my life. I will find a way to, make a video out of it, post it on social media, post the quotes on my story, and then also have like an outline of this book that's really evaluated. It has all the action steps that I could take and how it relates to different areas of my life. And that's how I'm able to maximize reading this book. So no longer am I going for quantity, I'm going for quality, right? That's more important, is having a high quality yield on the takeaways from this book, right? And so then that applies to everything that I do. Instead of just going for reps all the time, I got to also try to balance taking or having high quality iterations. It's a mixture of the two. You want to lift weights all the time, but you also want to have a heavy day every couple of days to really stretch yourself, right? You want to run most of your days at like a zone 2 pace where you're, able to talk while running. And then on very few, or, once a week, you want to run a very strenuous long distance run, It's all about having a balance between those two things. At certain times you are obsessed with this, and at certain times you're obsessed with this. The two sides of going all in versus just maintaining. All this is to say, what are the things that I need to change going into next year? I need to be more consistent with my actions. So I'm going to read most likely like 50 pages a day. That way I can be consistent in reading a book every single week and take that information and apply it to my life. And I'm going to try to I'll be doing these videos once every single day to get in the habit of posting videos, right? So I can actually follow through every single day and have something a project that I'm finishing, right? On top of that, I can try to take on or make some really great videos, solid videos once a week for this marathon challenge that I'm doing next year of running a marathon in all 50 states. So it'll be the first time where I'm doing videos on a consistent basis that are still very interesting, and it'll take a lot out of me to edit these videos, but it'll be a great exercise of following through on video editing, right? These are the things that I haven't done in the past, and if I want to get to where I want to go, then I have to do them. And so I have to get clear on what exactly needs to happen, and those are just a couple of the things, right? So figure out what are the things that you need to do different in this next season of life to continue to move towards your goal. Because if you're not there and you've been going for a long time, odds are you're doing something wrong, and then you have to make a change in order to actually achieve this vision. Unless you just want to talk about it for the rest of your life. You know, if you want to, those are the glory days. Back in my day when we got so close, or all those different things. If that's the story you want to share, be my guest. But I will say, remember when I made the switch. Remember when I made the first move. And now, look at where I am. Now, look what I have achieved. That's who I want to be, and that's what I'm building towards every single day, starting tomorrow. No, I'm just kidding. Starting today. Why not us?